Good morning to another episode of Coffee with Friends.
The guests on our live streams reflect a diverse set of values, morals, and ethics that may not reflect the morals, values, and ethics of the Misfit Amish. This live stream may also discuss trauma of all sorts to include all types of abuse. Viewers and listeners may find it unsettling and triggering. If this live stream causes you distress, please cease listening until you're able to listen again. You may also seek support from your trusted folks and qualified mental health professionals as needed. Welcome to the show.
With that being said, I'd like to welcome Joshua. Good morning,
Hello.
Joshua.
Good morning.
Would you like to introduce yourself? And
Yeah, sure. So my name is Joshua. I should probably divulge my pronouns. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am a former brethrenist, if that's the correct term, which for those of you who aren't familiar is I'm pretty sure kind of an offshoot of Anabaptism or something like that.
okay.
Yeah.
So, is there a specific type of brethren, or do you not feel comfortable disclosing that?
Oh, I got no. Okay, yeah. So it's so I came from a Brethren church that was known as the Plymouth, or denomination of Brethrenism called the Plymouth Brethren. It actually wasn't until I met Mary. It actually wasn't until I met you that I learned that there were different flavors of Brethrenism, for lack of a better term. Like I'd never heard of the River Brethren, or I think Dunker Brethren.
Dunkard brethren?
Dunker, yeah. I was, I've never heard of those before. So yeah, I was raised Plymouth Brethren. Lots of hyper biblical literalism, or hyper literal biblical interpretation, and a whole lot of weird trauma wrapped up in that, especially around the rapture. So also like a bizarre focus on the apocalypse, which was
Okay.
yeah, very interesting.
I mean, like, okay, so I guess we could start by kind of saying how interesting it is that you were in such a bubble you didn't even know there were other denominations of brethren.
Oh yeah.
I find that utterly fascinating. Like, did y'all not know that there were others like you, just different flavors, or was it kept from you?
So it was very much kept. I did to some extent, and I think this kind of just really kind of demonstrates how deep the information, the disinformation campaign goes. I don't know if even my parents knew that there were other variants of Brethrenism. I'm not sure that even they knew. Growing up, there were other Brethren churches, specifically Plymouth Brethren churches that, like my church, share denominational similarities with, and we all sort of, we all would converge at a place. So I'm from Wisconsin. It's Midwest crew up in here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what's up.
that was right. Yeah.
You know it.
I just actually on a totally different tangent. I just had some time in my own space to memorialize the Midwestern Roman Empire, which is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That bell rang 30 times this year, and man, that sadness hits different. But anyway, but so basically, like in our little, I'm sorry, what?
I do have a suggestion, in true Midwestern fashion. Like, just think about the brandy old fashioned that could help you alleviate some of that grief.
Oh man.
Continue.
I mean, man, when I'm getting down, my rule of thumb is if they're serving it in a glass in terms of height that is larger than this, they fucked up. They fucked up. It's not an
right?
It is not an old fashioned. I'm sorry. Yeah. Anywho's. So our churches across the Wisconsin state area, there were a couple Brethren churches in Wisconsin that my church would coordinate with, and there was one actually in Minneapolis, and then there was another in kind of like in the Chicago Mount Prospect area, and all of those churches kind of just I mean, it was weird. Like you would have, family members from one, every now and then visit the other, and it was kind of like it was pretty close knit. But the focal point for all of these churches centered around Westby, Wisconsin, had a place called Living Waters Bible Camp, which
Oh my.
has a
Oh
whole
my. I
there.
can't.
I
I
am
can't.
I am but one of many that crawled out of um that theologically traumatizing cesspool that they call a Bible camp.
I mean, that sign.
Yeah.
That sign.
Hmm.
First off, and I know we've had this conversation, but I'm going to go there anyways because I think it's important that people understand.
Hmm. Hmm.
Living Waters Bible Camp had a small little sign out in the middle of like bumfuck Egypt, quite frankly. If you blinked, you missed it.
Yep. Yep.
And you did not see the actual camp.
Mm-mm.
You
Nope.
could not see that from the road. It wasn't something that was visible.
Nope. No. It's in a valley. Um, you could, if the sign didn't exist, you would have there is no inkling of any type of evidence that that place exists. You could drive past it, you'd have no clue that it's there. I'm actually quoting the camp's director right now, which when he said those words, that was when I realized, oh, I'm in the bad place right now. I need to get the fuck out. Um,
Did you ever
yeah.
watch The Good Place?
No, I mean I've seen a few episodes. I really want to. I've been a couple of my friends who are like more into like philosophy and have like read like Kant. I think are really like, oh, you've got to watch The Good Place.
Well,
It looks interesting.
but you mentioned like being in the bad place, and I just felt like that
Yeah,
came
no, that's
like that show.
mhm. Right. Oh no, and like I think I've seen like I think I may have seen like a clip of that where it's just like, oh, you're actually in the bad place, you know.
Hmm.
But yeah.
So, about how long ago was that? Like when your director like quoted that?
That was um that was the summer of 2015, which was that was my last summer there. And that was the summer where I was starting to put two and two together and realizing, oh, this place is actually um very, very toxic. You can the fact I was 21.
Hmm.
So fun fact about me, I'm adopted. Um my It's a little difficult to talk about, but I think it's worth talking about really. That summer was the summer that I met my birth family. I had never met my biological parents or my biological siblings. I didn't even know that I had biological siblings until the summer of 2015. And I also found out that, oh, they actually kind of live not near that part of Wisconsin. They live like around 2 hours away, like in Eau Claire. Um, but or one of them lived there and the other was visiting. And camp was a sort of place where it didn't matter how old you were. If you left, you had to not just get permission from the person above you, you had to also get permission from the person above the people that were above you. You had to literally go up the chain of command, essentially. And then you had to sign out and give an approximation of when you'd be back. And if you were not back by that time, like someone would go to find you. Um, there was no like either that or like they would call you, or there was like there was no you couldn't really have any agency. Um,
So they controlled your physical movements.
oh, 100%. Absolutely. And when my biological sister basically and when I got in contact with her for the first time, she was like, hey, like, come over to my grandparents cottage. Your other sister's going to be there and I've got this musical that I'm in. And I was like, oh, 100%. This is the first time I'm meeting these people. This is crazy. And yeah, when I tried to get permission from like the people at camp, it was interesting because on one you could tell that they were there was a competing, I guess, sort of desire for both from people at camp, from the people that I had to get permission from. I would ask them. I remember asking them, like, yeah, like, these are people that are part of my biological family. I've never met them before, and the first thing out of their mouth was, okay, well, will you be back in time to set up chairs for, the parents that they have coming in on Sunday? It was just like this sort of just, it's just this failure to recognize, oh, this is important to somebody and might supersede this random thing that camp has going on. It was strange. And then even, coming back, the sort of way that our social lives would be policed was ridiculous. If you spent too much time with the opposite sex, you would be taken aside and you would get talked to. It was, and yeah, no, your personal life didn't matter. Oh, absolutely not. That's the thing. Camp comes first at camp.
Well, even though you're, being adopted in and of itself is trauma, because being separated from your family of origin, from your birth family, is in fact trauma. I do
Absolutely.
understand that. I can never understand what it's like to be adopted, but I can hold space for you to talk about that, because I do understand that it is very traumatic for people to be separated from their families of origin. And then for you to have this experience where the church comes across, to me, it feels kind of like they're supposed to be your church family, right? Like your kind of like your source of comfort, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, what you're getting from them is callousness, casual dismissal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It just didn't.
Yeah.
The only time that my adoptive, and actually had a pretty tense conversation with someone who I think is still in the Brethren, because they had posted something about adoption, which just, when it comes to people who are adopted within these circles of fundamentalism, your identity, your existence, the aggregate of who you are as a person doesn't matter. The only time that it does matter is when your pastor or whoever is giving a sermon is reminded that, oh yeah, Christ died on the cross and adopted us as his family, just like X person. That's really the only time that your identity, or as a person who's been adopted, that's the only really time like that it matters, is when it serves as a way to reinforce that theological belief.
Can I ask you a question about some of that?
Sure.
When you're talking about that, did you also have the feeling, and not to put words in your mouth, it's fine if you never had this feeling, but did you ever have the feeling that you were expected to be grateful for being adopted?
Oh my God. So I was adopted.
What?
I'm sorry. It's just like, it's fun. Like, no one's ever
You
asked
can
me that
laugh.
before.
You
sorry,
can
like,
laugh.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. Like,
No,
one's
I
ever
get
asked
it.
me that. Yeah. And it's like, there's like a literal, all right. So like,
No,
I'm mixed as fuck. I was adopted by the whitest people I know. They're German immigrants, and I was always informed. I was very well informed that there is a price tag for how much I cost, because nothing's free in the U.S., especially adoption. So there is literally a dollar amount over my head that could probably be adjusted for inflation, because I was adopted in 1994. Secondly,
I'm
bullet
sorry.
point.
I am laughing with you, Joshua.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
I get it.
It's so fucked.
It's so fucked.
It's so fucking weird too. And what's so weird about it is the sort of weird Hallmark Christian nicety that the Christian adoptive community tries to wrap around it, and it's like, y'all are actually just buying people. You're just too scared to say it. It's just like, I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Like, you don't get to gaslight me and tell me that's not the case. That's literally, it's on the same par. It's on the same level as like when people donate plasma. It's like, okay, this isn't donating, but separate issue. Bullet point number 2. I was always told that I should be grateful because I remember growing up hearing about how my parents both worked 2 jobs, and essentially because see, I was a closed adoption. I have an adopted sister, which is like she was adopted through an open adoption procedure, which was a little more, I don't know if it's necessarily as expensive in terms of, court proceedings and the like, but with a closed adoption such as mine, I was reminded fairly often about how my dad had to like pull like 11-hour shifts, like working as a bread delivery driver from like 3 a.m. to like 9 p.m, like just crazy hours. That's definitely more than like a 11-hour shift, I'm just realizing. But like, just like, crazy, like this sort of like ridiculous amount of work that he had to put in just essentially to afford me. So I was reminded of this by not just my parents, but I was also reminded of it by like, the people at church, like, oh, you must be grateful, and it's just like, I don't know, like, I don't, like, I was adopted from birth. It was like it's like such a weird thing to say to somebody, let alone someone who's been adopted from birth, which they all knew, which is even, weirder when you say it out loud.
Would you like to know why I asked the question?
Absolutely.
Because while I wasn't adopted, we were sent off to certain families and homes because our house burned down. And when we went to those families and homes, like, I literally had to eat separate food from the family that I lived with. I was expected to work off my labor for the cost of me being there. I was expected to be grateful for being repetitively essayed as a child by multiple ones of their children. And the parents also physically abused me in this place. And when I went to leave there and go back to my mother, the widow house, this woman had the audacity to look at me and say, "Oh, but Mary, I don't understand why you're so ready to leave. We were so good to you."
Thank you, ma'am. May I have another?
So anyways, I kind of thought about that in the context of what you were saying. And I was like, I wonder if you ever felt like you were expected to be grateful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they told you to your face the audacity of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird, it's just kind of like this. You're made to feel guilty for just existing. Just existing is enough of enough of a problem for them. And I'm sorry, I'm reading the comment in our time. Yeah. And
Hannah says, we have brethren in our town where I come from. Yeah. They adopted 2 black girls and people literally stared at them in the store. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
She goes on to further say that's some Oliver Twist nonsense. You got that right.
Oh my God. Fucking ridiculous. It's exhausting. And yeah, your mere existence is a problem, and then you're told kind of furthermore about like how, oh yeah, we did all this for you, and I remember thinking to myself, like, when my parents would tell me this, I remember thinking, I never fucking asked you to do shit. I was an infant, and before that, when you guys were filling out the paperwork, I wasn't even, I wasn't even necessarily like conscious, let alone, I guess, whatever you want to define as a person or not, like, I was just in utero. I had no bearing on this, but, got to remember, these are, I was raised by immigrant parents. They're a whole other brand of emotionally stunted, but, it's, they just to their credit, I would say they tried their best to at least create within the maelstrom of the brethren. They did try to create a semi-stable home but you know, I'm still in fucking therapy.
I mean, hi,
Yeah.
welcome to the club.
Right. I've lost track of like
It's
how many.
called.
Yeah.
You've
It's funny
lost
because like
track of.
oh, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, no, sorry. I was saying I've lost track of like the sort of videos that I've like on TikTok of like they're like hey anyone else with like parents remember this, and it's like some kid crying over their math homework and the parents in the background like screaming at them like, if Jimmy has 2 apples, listen, I'm not playing, I'll give you something to cry about, like that shit. I lost track of how many videos I've seen like that, and it's like, wow, we all kind of had similar emotionally abusive parents who just didn't know their shit at all. Yeah,
Well,
and yeah,
I mean, like here's the thing: is like I truly believe that I have to believe that people do better when they know better. Like Maya Angelou said, right? But in the
sure.
same token, like I mean, the amount of trauma that I've heard expressed by adoptees sometimes really just crushes me.
Yeah.
I think that people need to know better, to do better in
Mhm.
how they treat adoptees. And
Oh
I
my
think
god.
specifically when you're mentioning your experience, you're like speaking truth to power. But
Mhm.
you're also speaking about what you experience and specifically identifying like the conservative Christian adoptee. Did I hear that right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Experience and how that can negatively affect children when they're being reminded of what a burden they are.
Oh my
Because
god. Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm hearing from you is that you felt like a burden. Now you're still in therapy. You've been out for several years. You're still like in therapy, and I'm just saying you're in good company, man. Like
Mhm.
we some of us need therapy for the things we experienced in our childhood, and that's a fact.
Oh yeah.
Uh, it's just one of those things where sometimes therapy can help us make sense of the world around us, make sense of the things that we experience, and to also understand that we specifically, like when we were children, we didn't deserve that. You didn't
Mm.
deserve that.
No.
None of us deserve that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, like, anyways,
But
so go ahead.
well, that what everything that you were saying actually reminded me of something that my therapist, she says this a lot. Is what she'll ask me, what did you need to hear? Um, and Yeah, it's different parts of us during different there's different parts of us that exist at different stages of our lives. You know, um,
Mhm.
I think to some degree that my younger, like elementary school aged self needed to hear like, hey, you know, that's not how you treat a kid, and and that's this is not a safe place. These aren't safe people, and it's okay to feel scared, from that. Let and then to some other degree, like I am still kind of trying to formulate what my adolescent self needs to hear, because there's so many different parts of you that feel so many different ways. Your child, your inner child feels really just absolutely crushed. Your inner adolescent is just like is raging, against everything, you know. And then there's like your adult self,
Mhm.
who's trying to kind of make sense of everything. Yeah.
So then, how do you deal with that when you're a child? How
When
does
you're, I'm sorry, what?
when you're a child and you're experiencing all of that, like how do you deal with that? Do you want to talk about how that sometimes comes out?
Sure. Do you mean like when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Like, okay. Oh man. Yeah. It didn't take much to get me to cry when I was a kid. Um, or to run away. Those are my two big things, because I was fast. I'm still pretty fast. I'm a pretty good runner. but those were definitely um that I remember being, uh well, I shouldn't say that, but the third option was dissociating. I learned how to do that when I was around 7, I want to say. Um that one was kind of more of like a just pure survival tactic. And I remember, yeah, I remember that came up, not just at home, that also came up at camp. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, there was, yeah,
Well, the thing is that often children respond to trauma very primally, like not even
hmm
just primally, like we just respond to trauma, and that's
yeah,
how we respond to trauma. We all find different ways of like coping with the trauma that we're experiencing. And
yeah,
then, like, furthermore, like, sometimes inside of these circles, what can happen is when we employ those coping strategies, even though they're not necessarily like they're things that kept us alive,
yeah,
disassociation, I can definitely, like, I know what that is very intimately.
yeah.
Um, just running and hiding. That's like your
Mhm.
flight response to
Oh
trauma.
yeah,
And then, like, sometimes you freeze and you just stay, like, you're just right there. Sometimes you run into this, like, you feel so ashamed, and then you have to appropriately, profusely over apologize basically for your existence. It can feel like just because you're in an unsafe situation. So, it's unfair, it's not right, and we got to do better. So, anyways, so you're talking about disassociation at 7.
yeah.
You learned that.
Oh
And
yeah.
like, I think we kind of were going to talk about the persecution complex and how that, like, can we
Mm-hmm.
kind of switch gears a little
Mm-hmm.
bit
Well,
and
it
go
actually.
into
But yeah. Oh no, we totally can, because it's exactly, it kind of leads right into that. So it wasn't the first time. Well, actually, no. I think that actually really was the first time that I like hardcore dissociated. So this is at Bible camp. It was my first year.
oh my,
So yeah. Oh yeah. They pulled out all the stops. So, damn it.
what?
Um,
What?
it's just a lot. So hang on. I'm pouring the tea right now, both literally and metaphysically or metaphorically.
Oh
I'm gonna need
my.
a lot for this. So camp is in this valley. The valley is about a mile long. At the end of it, there's this red barn, and I remember there was about maybe 10 of us, 7 to 9, 10-year olds in this group. And it was part of like one of the activities, because like you're at camp for a week, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with Bible camp with Living Waters, they basically rotate activities throughout the day. There's a theme for the camp. I think the theme that week was like mighty workers or some shit like that. The theme ties to a Bible verse, yada yada. And so anyway, we're in the red barn, and there's this little old lady inside, kind of dressed like a little old, like more old fashioned, not like, like a super long time ago, but more like from like the 1930s. Um, and she's talking to us about, I don't know if does YouTube limit certain words on here?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
it's
All right. Well, she was talking to us about the Third Reich and about Mr. Mustache Man's Germany, and about how the Jews were persecuted, and the Christians were persecuted, and like what methods people would use to help people hide and escape. So she, was telling us the story of Corrie ten Boom and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, which are historical figures which did exist, who did help Jews escape the Schmatzi reign. And
yeah,
she takes us over, but the thing is there was a lot of like the thing is about this, God damn it, is the way that this story is presented is really bizarre, in so much that it's a lesson in, yeah, the Schmatzis did this. They did this to the Jews. Um, someday this could happen to Christians. We don't know when, but it could happen. And this is how she prefaced this. And we're all just 7 to 10-year-olds kind of like, okay, this is terrifying. Some of us, I already learned about a little bit. I was always a history nut, so I kind of knew a little bit about the Schmatzis and World War II. So she takes us over. I'm sorry, you look like you have a question.
I mean,
Like,
this does not sound traumatizing at all.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it's fucked.
Joshua, like I would never have sat there and like told my 7-year-old child.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Shoot, like
happen.
somebody
the big bad liberals are gonna knock down your door.
Somebody told my child about hell. And I'm going to tell you what, my child came home and said, Mom, what is hell? I said, there's some people who believe this.
Oh, that's got to be a rough talk.
I'm just saying, but like, I just, like, who tells their children these kinds of stories and then implies that, and not even just implies, but tells them to prepare for this in the world, because this is what the worldly people are going to do, which further separates y'all from the world and creates a situation where, you know, when you go outside of the group, this is like an us versus them mentality. Did you also have a special word for the worldly people, like where we use English?
Right. You know, I'm not so sure that we did. I think we really just called them worldly people or unbelievers. I think we were a bit more just like bald-faced about it. But yeah, but the thing is so
this is a separatist mindset.
Yeah. So
with a persecution complex.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, what's really scary, what terrified me is this little old lady, you know, takes us all over to the side of the barn. This is like we're on the inside of the barn now. It's this really big thing, and she takes us over to the side, and there's this little like panel that she basically pushes in and to the side, and it's a crawl space. And she goes, yeah, people like Corrie ten Boom and you know Dietrich Bonhoeffer, like, this is, you know, where people would have to hide other people from the Schmatzis, you know. And as kids we're like, okay, this is weird. And you know, we go back, you know, to the you know, center of the barn, and all of a sudden so like they closed the door behind us, you know, we were just kind of whatever, and then all of a sudden we just hear this like violent bang, just this bang bang bang, you know, and we hear people on the other side saying, open up, we're looking for, you know, what a member of the Third Reich would say who they're looking for. Literally like Schindler's List level shit. And this little old lady, she's just like, oh my God. And she just runs over to this thing and she opens up the crawl space and she goes, all right, children, get inside. And we're all, there's 10 of us. We're all hurled, you know, not hurled. We're all stuffed into this little hallway essentially. In terms of like how wide it was pretty narrow. It's about, I'm sitting, I mean, it's like, it was about, in terms of width, it was like two or three of me's across. So it's not very, probably 2.5 me's wide. And it was about maybe 12 feet long. So it's just this very narrow hallway hidden in this barn. And so we all pile in there. She shuts the door. It's pitch black. And the door just, we hear it kind of just like break open, and kind of just hear a bunch of 18, 19-year-old boys basically role-playing Gestapo agents and screaming like, where are, yeah. I remember hearing them break shit. There was so much noise. And I remember hearing all of the kids around me, like, I mean, most of them were crying. And I remember for me, I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, if I cry, that's going to make noise and that they might hear me. So I need to be quiet. And so I shut down. I went somewhere else. I remember as a kid always being scared of the dark. I didn't give a shit that it was pitch black. It was just, just be quiet so they don't find you. And yeah, when it was all over, when they left, I remember it was quiet, but the only thing that you could hear were just kids trying to cry quietly, which was just so fucked. They called it, the activity was called Bible Smugglers. And yeah, the whole premise was that, yeah, someday we're gonna have to prepare for that reality someday.
So they were preparing y'all to be Bible smugglers in the event of
Of mass persecution of Christians. Yeah.
Specifically using the persecution of
the Jews in the Third Reich Germany as an example.
Because of Mustache Man, because
Yep.
that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Do you think any of that was founded in actual, like, anything of substance? Like, where did this come from?
I think there has always been, within fundamentalist Christianity, I think there's always been a irrational fear that stipulates to its adherents that granting any outgroup equal rights, representation, or footing with them is persecution. I don't know where this came from. From what I've seen, though, just like on social media lately, and just kind of, through just the invention of the internet, it seems that this is pretty widespread throughout not just fundamentalist Christianity, but like in non-denominational Christianity as a whole, that there's this sort of, there's the war on Christmas, as an example, or giving gay people the right to marry was somehow seen as an attack on Christianity. Anything enshrined into law that is not a part of Christian doctrine is looked upon as persecution, is looked upon as one more step that the state is taking to to persecute Christians. I remember actually, fast forward to 2015, my last year at camp, I was actually in a 2-week in Bible intensive called Foundation Camp, which is its own weird, bizarre thing. And I remember during that week, we didn't have any cell phones. They were taken. We essentially it was basically like a 2-week, like, you are not allowed to interact with the outside world, period. It's just, you wake up at 6, you do exercise for like an hour, you have a 2-hour Bible study, and then you like have breakfast, and like then you work essentially all day. I remember one of those days we had a sort of lecture that was followed up by like a movie or something, and we were having the discussion about it, and the director of the camp came downstairs, and he looked and sounded like he just saw he looked like he had seen like the 9/11 footage all over again. Like he looked and sounded like he had witnessed a national tragedy. I'm not even kidding. And he just said, the White House was lit up today in the gay pride colors. It's a very dark world that you're all entering into. You are all lights of Christ, but it is a very dark world.
What if the light of Christ is a rainbow light?
Yeah, and I remember thinking, I was 21 at that point, so I'm thinking like the gay pride colors, like, are you telling me that like we get the visible light spectrum, but they get their own separate like spectrum of light? That's pretty fucking cool. Like, I don't know, just like, is it like a UV type thing? Is it like X-ray? Is it like gamma radiation? Because like, fuck, that'd be cool. Like,
Also,
just want
I
to see the
haven't
world.
gotten my proper lights yet. I'm gonna need to
Haven't?
write. No, I
You
need
don't get
to.
them retinas replaced with like the X-ray retinas?
No, I don't have
Oh
that yet.
man,
Like, what happened
you got to go
here?
to the gay DMV, man. Don't they have that? Don't you
Oh
get
my
like
god.
you get that with your gay license too, right?
Oh, we have gay license too
I
now?
don't know.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I was told. I'm just a confused, sad, heteronormative man. That's all I am. I just need
Well,
guidance. But
I just feel like that just went a little bit far. Did you get your straight license? Did you get your cis het license? Because
you
I just
know,
feel like
shit.
I
Trying
mean,
to think.
I did
I
get my
may have.
driver's license.
You
I
got your
did
driver?
get my
Okay.
I did get my driver's license in Wisconsin, so you can blame your Wisconsin DMV.
I was gonna say, yeah,
That's where it all went wrong,
yeah.
y'all.
Well, right. They do have
And
yeah,
specifically, it was the
right.
one in that county that the camp is in. By the way,
Oh yeah, yep.
okay,
Of course it
okay.
was. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the state senate for Wisconsin is Republican controlled, so they probably wanted to vest as much money away from government spending, and I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. Well, but regardless, I got my
yeah,
license, and you're
there you
working
go.
on yours, right?
Yeah,
You're
right.
you're
I am.
working
I'm
on
in
your.
the process. Yeah, I'm in the subreddits, getting some, getting some learning the paperwork finesse. But anyway,
Well,
um,
anyways,
anyway, yeah. I'm sorry. It was just the weirdest. I like, this. It, like and that's like not even, but the worst part is that that's not even the worst thing. After this intensive was over, I remember going back to my regular camp duties, which was just, I was a maintenance person, so it was just cleaning up camp, essentially making sure the floors are mopped, cleaning toilets, taking the trash out, trimming the hedges and all that crap, cleaning out gutters, you name it. I remember it was during family camp. I had just gotten some ice cream from the camp store, and I was just, lounging around in like the sort of, there's this main building called the lodge, which is where meals are served. There's a little camp store that sells like, snacks and like books and all sorts of shit. And I guess all of the parents had put their kids to bed, and they were all just kind of hanging out in this lounge area. And I just sat down at a table off to the side. And this was after the decision. I think it's the Dobbs decision or Ogden decision, whichever one was the one that granted, essentially where the Supreme Court granted gays the right to marry.
Obergefell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, first off, what scared me was how angry they all were. They were like genuinely angry. They were just like, I can't believe this would happen. I can't believe that we're giving them this right, to marry. And like one of them even said, I don't know if you'd understand why. They're only like 3% of the population. And it just like hearing that, I was like, wow, that's such a creepy thing to say. Like, it starts like that, it doesn't take long from they're only this much of the population, ergo they don't deserve rights. It from there to what you get from Germany in the 40s, that's not far away.
Uh-huh.
Like that literally is a gateway. That literally is a gateway drug to authoritarianism, fascism, you name it.
All I can think of is a song by Baby Rex. Not Baby Rex. Tuv Low, I think her name is. She sings a song that you're my gateway drug, and I'm like, this is your church right now with the persecution complex and the othering and all of that. Like that's like, yeah. But we do have a comment. We have several comments that I would like to address. One, I'm going to read them to you because we do also release audio only recordings of this live stream. So.
Okay.
I follow a lot of adoptees on social media. They have taught me a lot about trauma and gaslighting. It seems that the culty religious experience adds an extra layer to that trauma. Would you agree with that or disagree?
Oh, I would agree 100%.
And then therapy helps me deal with the nonsense of the world. I mean, like, but have you seen the world we live in? Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, you gotta have something to help you figure it out, when we weren't
Mm-hmm.
given the tools and we weren't taught the tools, and we weren't, like, we have to go as adults and acquire skills that we were never taught as children. That's part of what makes it so difficult. Anyways,
Oh my
for
God.
my plain grandmother's church, we modern ones were known as too worldly. Oh my.
Mm-hmm. If a church had a
Oh,
drum set, if a church had a drum set, I will say that church
I
was like
just
known as too worldly a little bit. Yeah.
I just need, like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Too worldly, just a smidge too far.
Mm-hmm.
And then we
Yep.
got Jay saying, late to the party here. I was adopted into a Mennonite family and things began going downhill, according to them, when I began looking into my bio family.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. That one.
Jay, you didn't deserve that, just like Joshua didn't deserve that. Like, my heart goes out to all of the adoptees. I can't ever make it right, but I can hold space for all of you. And if you ever want to come on here and just have a coffee and talk about your experiences, even if you don't want to get into the nitty gritty or the dark details, you don't have to. You're always welcome to come have coffee, have the conversations, talk about what you can, and maybe, just maybe, that can help change the world just a little bit.
I think it absolutely can. I mean, quite frankly, the person that I was talking to yesterday sent me this post. I'm going to pull it up here, but I really want to do address what Jay said. And Jay, I'm really sorry. I can tell you that I I have an idea of what that's like. I remember when I tried to kind of look into my own biological family, like on my own as a kid. My parents wouldn't have it. They pretty much reacted as though I had brought home a box of plutonium. Um, it's really harmful and it hurts because you have a natural desire, I think, to um, you know, to find out where you come from because you're a fucking person. And
And
for
because
whatever
you're a
reason,
human, you're a
yeah.
you're a human being, and to be human is to desire connection. You desire
Mhm.
meaningful connection, and there is this genetic component of, like, all of us that is comprised of all of the things, and how, where we come from. And
Yeah.
how can you embrace that? You don't even, if you have a closed adoption, you oftentimes, I hear people talking about, they don't even have medical records. They don't even know
Oh
their
yeah.
medical history.
Mhm.
They don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm
You deserve human rights, and
yeah,
human rights includes feeling connected and knowing where you came from.
yeah,
You
yeah,
deserve knowing.
absolutely. Take up that space and be loud about it. I think with my case, it was the fact that I have parents who just are extremely emotionally short-sighted and um, didn't know how else to react other than out of fear. Is that an excuse? No, but it's a reason. And at the very, I can at least now, when I look back, I take more comfort in so much that there's at least a logical explanation to why my parents acted out the way they did. It wasn't out of personal malice. It was just because they were just fucking scared and they just didn't know. They also didn't believe in therapy, which is another can of worms, but they just didn't have the emotional tools to navigate this. I tried looking for the post. I can't find it, but one of the things is that this person that I was talking with talked about how, like, adoption is this thing that, yes, it shouldn't be sugar coated, but like at the same time, Jesus is at the center of every adoption story. Yes, there's bad things that happen, and yes, it's painful, and we need to hashtag learn more and be better. Like your typical like LA, I'm listening and I'm learning bullshit. Um, and I just kind of clapped back at this person and I said, I don't think y'all really give a shit about us because we're just bodies for you to confirm your own biases and your beliefs. I'll just read what I texted. Um, let me find it quick. I just said, we're just bodies for your beliefs and nothing more. We're walking vessels that serve as little more than confirmation for your denominational convictions. If we dare challenge the mold people like you place us in, we are discarded and forgotten. I wish you would all at least have the courage to face that naked truth. And I haven't really gotten any response from them yet, at least none that's meaningful. But take up that space. You're a person. Don't let people gaslight you out of your human fucking rights, especially not these people at all.
I mean, you deserve space.
Damn right.
You all deserve space. Yeah. And also, like, Joshua, you read what you wrote, and it's like, that is powerful in and of itself, because it's something that speaks to me in ways like, it says, like, how you felt about being adopted and all of that. And then there's this whole, like, the expectation to be grateful, the expectation to be like this, comply with the societal norms of the group, that the in group, right? Because you were the separatist group. And then being trained to prepare for persecution at all costs. I do have one more thing that I think we talked about, and I would like to ask you about that.
Sure.
If you don't feel comfortable talking about it, you don't have to. But you were telling me something about, like, there was also a 2-week course to become a counselor.
Yep, that was the foundation camp intensive. What about it? What do you got?
I have questions. Okay, so what qualified these people to teach a counseling course?
Not a damn fucking thing.
What qualified? Like, I literally want to know, like, what by what authority were they appointed by God? Like, what's the authority here?
Like, okay. I think so. Like, there was one guy who was the primary lecture person. In terms of qualifications, and I'm a bit rusty because I haven't spoken or interacted with this individual for nearly a decade. I believe at one point, outside of faith operations, I'm pretty sure at one point he was like a biology teacher at a public school, and that's it. I don't think this individual does not have any qualifications around trauma-informed care, has no qualifications around like social work or psychology, anything really. It was, I mean, this, you need to understand, nothing that they did was designed to care for children that come from like different income levels or different racial or cultural backgrounds. None of that was a part of this at all. I think like at most, some, like, there was a little talk about how like there was another person that came in and talked about how like, oh yeah, children will sometimes kind of like engage in like a survival technique or something. But like, it was just like off to the side, and it was like, okay, but back to like how to make sure that we're preaching the Bible clearly. It was all Bible. It was all focusing on Bible, and nothing with how to deal with like, children from different backgrounds. There was, to their credit, but it's like, whatever, and I use credit very loosely, because I think it was really just a way for them to avoid lawsuits. There was basically, they spent about, I want to say 3 hours on a course about how to prevent like grooming children and like how to recognize grooming tactics, and like how to, like, who to address if we see that from people in positions of power over children.
Okay.
But that was it. And like, I mean, look, like, and here's the thing, and like, I got essayed, in my fucking church parking lot, and I didn't know who the fuck to go to.
Okay. I'll give them that. I'll give them credit for teaching you that. So whom did they tell you to report to if like you suspected grooming or SA?
If we suspected it, then we would have to go to the like director of the whole camp. So like one of the main directors who of course, these are all men, none of whom have any,
Joshua,
yeah. So it's like
are
it's not really credit because like we all know where the.
hold up.
All right, what we got?
What are Wisconsin laws on mandated reporting?
Damn, it's been a while. I don't know. I think it's like you have to, if an allegation is made and you are a mandated reporter, I think you have 24 hours to contact like DHS or law enforcement or like CPS. You have
Well,
24 hours, and if that time expires, then you are held criminally liable.
I am leaving a comment with a link to mandated reporting, how to
Yeah.
report. Okay.
Okay.
Reports of suspected child abuse and neglect can be made to the county where the child resides or to the law enforcement of where the possible abuse or neglect occurred. Reports of suspected school violence must be made to law enforcement. That does not mean going to your church leadership or your camp leadership and reporting it, does it now? But
No, it doesn't.
I'm not an attorney. I don't know. I'm just that's my personal
Yeah.
perspective after reading that.
No, that's I think that's a fair interpretation. It doesn't say shit about a camp counselor or director, but they told us that those are the people to go to, and that they would take things from there. If there have
Uh-huh.
been, so I was with my own experience in that that did not happen to me at camp. That happened to me in the a church parking lot at the
Uh-huh.
church I grew up at, which was awful. However, I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there were stories of SA at camp that just got swept under the rug because leadership. Um, I mean, you know how it is. They try and save face. They deal with their problems in house. Um,
Uh-huh.
you know, but I don't. I don't have any. I haven't heard any stories of people from, at least not yet. I hope that that didn't happen to anybody. Um, you know, uh, yeah, this is awful.
That is pretty
Yeah,
awful.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah, I do know that like in terms of like saving face, I know from like other experiences that I've had. Like I had a family member who has a parent who was like on the board of directors for camp, and I remember seeing them essentially get like I don't want to say like beaten by their parent, but like for lack of a better term, I remember seeing them getting beaten by their parent because they weren't memorizing enough Bible verses. And I am not the descendant of a person who's a director of camp. I am not Brethren royalty, as the term has been popularized. Um, and I was really good at memorizing Bible verses, but this kid wasn't. And that makes the person who's on the board of directors for camp look bad. Um,
oh yeah.
so
Um,
if so, like I mean, if something like that happened at camp, it's kind of a perfect storm where like I don't think that they would necessarily call the authorities for that, especially if it was someone in a position of power. They would more than likely try to keep that in house. You know,
yeah.
the same as like any other toxic religious community. They all operate the same. They just have different names.
And they have different some of them have like different I want to say different covers that they put on like or they use the same tools but in different ways.
Oh yeah, big
Like
time.
that's pretty much it. I did also link some stuff from Rain and the docs from wisconsin.gov statutes just
Okay.
so like people can go read it if they want to. But I think it's important that we understand how like mandated reporting works.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important that people do what they know is right for
Ooh.
the children involved in who are experiencing abuse. Like, here's the
Mhm.
thing: when people sit there and they just look the other way and they do nothing, even when they suspect there's abuse that has transpired, like at the end of the day, what does that say about you? Because that
Yeah.
child didn't ask for that. That child didn't deserve that. I don't care if that child walked around naked. I don't care. That
Mm.
child was not asking to be essayed. You didn't deserve that. We didn't deserve that. But go ahead,
Yeah.
Joshua.
Furthermore, I just remembered when it comes to mandated reporting, in this intensive, there was nothing. There was no coursework because I am a mandated reporter. I have worked every single job that I have had in my professional life. I have been a mandated reporter. If I suspect abuse, I have to operate in due diligence because I've worked in mental health primarily. I have to make a report, that basically is just like, hey, I saw this, and then I let whatever entity I report it to take it from there. To become a mandated reporter, you have to take like a number of courses, and usually your employer will provide those for you at no cost because that's usually like from the county. And I've done this in Wisconsin and in Minnesota. Um, and Camp never issued any type of mandated reporting course.
Okay.
No one, no one, no counselor. I don't know of any staff members. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I mean, I was a maintenance staff, but when you're training a bunch of like 17 to 20-year-olds, how to be counselors, and you're talking about this, they didn't have any sort of course or anything that certified us as mandated reporters.
Okay. I just want to point out that the Wisconsin legislature actually says persons required to report, and it has a list of people: a school teacher, a school administrator, a school counselor, a school employee, not otherwise specified in this paragraph, a
Okay.
child care worker in a child care center, group home, or residential care center for children and youth, a child care provider. So, whether or not they provided the training or not, everybody who worked at that camp was a mandated reporter.
Yep.
But they didn't provide the training, and that's an
No.
important distinction
No.
because
No. They never did.
why?
Who fucking knows? Who? I
Why?
mean, you're asking the wrong person. I would ask. I mean, there's people who you can ask, and they work in the upper echelons of camp. But reasoning why? I mean, I hope it's not necessarily confirmation of um, any abuse happening, but I mean, either to save money for whatever reason, or I could see some sort of disgusting, greasy legal defense as well. We didn't know because we don't train our staff to be mandated reporters. Which
Uh-huh.
naturally begs the question: okay, then why are you
Running.
operating this? Why are you doing
Why
this?
are you running a
What are
camp?
you doing here?
Why are you running a
Yeah.
camp? I want to know
Yep.
why you're running a camp. If like
Hmm.
you can't, if you
Yeah.
can do these courses and spend 2 weeks to
Hmm.
train what 18, 19-year olds to be counselors, but you can't, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
come again?
Yeah.
Because
Can't do
like, what is happening here, and what is the purpose of this?
the purpose. Yeah. And I mean, they'll tell you that the purpose is to lead souls to Christ. I think the purpose really is just sure, okay, we can call it that, but it's also free labor. I remember helping out as a camper with several camp projects, doing just manual labor, digging trenches or clearing rocks and just hauling buckets of rocks from one lake bed to somewhere else for whatever stupid ass reason. Um,
Oh my.
yeah, just a bunch of, I mean, oh yeah, if you can, it's just, we are a free pool of labor. Um, that's one reason. I think the other reason is, not just for labor, but also to make money. This is a nonprofit. And with the types of connections that people make when people are ingratiated into this community, this is another story, I guess, that I can bring up. At one point, there was a competition between camp and a St. Jude's Cancer Research Hospital. And the goal was like, if this Facebook post gets us this many likes, the winner essentially gets like $1,000 or something like that. And of course, camp won. Camp immediately just was like on their page on Facebook was like, send this to all your friends and family. And it went, it outpaced St. Jude's cancer research by, by a mile. So money is also an important factor here. Yeah.
Somehow it just always seems to come down to the bottom line. And you want to know what the bottom line is? Money. It's always about money. It doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit. It doesn't matter if it's a ministry. It doesn't matter. It's always somehow about the money.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, like I spent a whole summer there. I wasn't paid per hour. I was working all day. And essentially, to pay us, we just received donations from a few churches. And it was like, I think I made, over the course of 3 months, I think I made maybe like $400. That's it. For 3 months of Sunday to Saturday, nonstop working. I mean, I shouldn't say nonstop, because if I stopped, I had to specifically request permission, and I had to like leave and, make sure I was back on time, or else I get followed. But yeah, you're not you're not compensated for your labor.
So not only not compensating you for your labor, but stalking you to ensure that you're complying with the expectations.
Yep.
Oh my.
You don't. I mean, I was able to get away with it one time, which was fun as hell. But some things I think are best kept private. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
But like you're not allowed to have a life outside of camp, and you're expected to work long hours in the heat, and you just don't matter,
Yeah.
And I think what's really sad is kind of coming back to like the adoption bit. I remember you grow up, it's weird, as I said earlier, your life kind of gets reduced down to like a sermon talking point, and that's really all that, when people see you, that's really like, it's like all they see. And I think the real insidious part of that is it tricks you. It fools you into believing that, oh yeah, no, these people really care about me. For me, I used to sing opera. So I would sing at Christmas services or the New Year's Eve service or Easter services. And, outside of a sermon talking point about adoption or substitution, that's usually when people would, compliment me on my voice, the usual talking points. You have such a wonderful voice for God, yada, yada. So over time, you naturally are fooled into believing that these people care about you. And then in the spring of 2016, one of my best friends from high school he unalived himself. And I didn't see his body. I'm glad that I didn't, but I saw where his body was after he did it. And it was, he used a shotgun. So as you can imagine, it was quite messy. That's the sort of thing that stays with you. I remember after that, I started to measure time differently. And I remember becoming, my friends who weren't Christian were saying, hey, you need to get some help, because at that point I was essentially an alcoholic, and sort of just descending into depression myself. It was visible. My mom told a few people, she asked me if it was okay if she told people at church what I was going through. And I just said, fine, go ahead. I don't care. And I remember going to church with my parents, after this happened, once the school semester, ended, because I was in college. And I remember attending a few services with them. I don't think one person came up to me and asked me how I was doing. Um, I saw what happens when someone does that to themselves.
When
I
someone
hmm?
so when someone dies by suicide, you saw what happened when someone
Oh,
dies by
sorry.
suicide.
I saw. Sorry, not saw what happened. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I saw the aftermath of that.
Yeah.
I still, you just don't forget that. I was very visibly shaken, um, and withdrawn, and I may as well have just been invisible to these people who throughout my whole life had claimed that they cared about me. Um, who you know uh, were so amazed that God brought me into this world and that God chose me for my parents. But when I came face to face with a loss that um, it'll be 8 years this coming May, um, that I still uh, you know struggle with. It was the same. Nothing changed for them. Um, you know,
And
and I think that was the deepest. That was the deepest sense of hurt. Really, was that I could sustain such a heavy loss, and no one really gave a shit. So, um,
would you say you felt betrayed by the people ww professed to care about you at that point?
100%.
Okay.
I never saw any of them at the funeral. I never got a call. I never got a text. No one came to my door. Um, the most that anyone did was ask my mom how I was doing. And because my mom, you need to remember, I was adopted into a very German household. So of course, my mom, not knowing any better, I don't fault her for this in the slightest but she would say, oh, he's struggling, but he's doing okay. I was, I was trying to, I was trying to unalive myself just with liquor, you know? Um, Yeah, I mean, at one point I attempted myself.
Mm.
I just got blackout drunk and got behind the wheel of my car, and I kind of said to myself, you know what? If I don't make it, I don't care. And I somehow woke up in uh, my parents' house, and I was just like, wow, okay, that's annoying. You know, um, yeah,
Yeah.
and not a single, not a word from anyone from that community, from my church or from camp.
That just
Yeah.
Yeah. I can only imagine how betrayed you felt about that and
Yeah.
how much that's struggle. Would you like to have a moment of silence for your friend?
Sure.
I think sometimes we experience things, and some of those things are so unbearable that we just don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Some of us
Yeah.
die by suicide, and the stigma around suicide is so great, and the stigma around attempting to unalive ourselves or suicide attempts or attempting to die by suicide is so great. And we really need to have more open conversations about that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're still with us. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
you lost your friend.
Thanks. Thank you.
Uh, but I would say, like, we're about to like end this recording,
Hmm.
and if you would like to have or speak any words to somebody who maybe might be experiencing some of the things that you've experienced, the floor is open. This is your time and your space to do so.
Actions at the end of the day speak infinitely more than words. I don't know who said it, but a pair of working hands do more than 1,000 praying hands. If you're out there and you don't know where to go, there are resources. There's always the crisis line. If you are in a toxic faith community and you don't know who to trust, honestly, I mean, go to a. I don't really know. I mean, your journey is going to look different. All of ours look different. That's what connects us. I would urge you to find. There is I think it's called recovering from religion is one such
Yeah,
resource.
recovering from religion, secular therapy as well. If
Yes.
you have religious trauma, you might benefit from secular therapy. Recovering from religion itself has online support groups and in-person support groups in various countries.
Yes. These are organizations that will help you infinitely more than people from your faith community saying that they're praying from you. I don't really care how offensive that is. It wasn't prayer that brought me back from the edge. It was connecting with my community. It was my friends outside of the church that were able to pull me back and getting into therapy. It definitely looks bleak. I can imagine. I can remember it. Oh, it will look bleak, and things. The days just drag on. Each day feels like a year, but if you're in a position where you can't even do that, then I would say start journaling, write that shit out, put pen to paper, and get those thoughts at least somewhere where you can physically hold them, and try to engage with that part of yourself that is feeling that pain. And I guess I would finish by actually I'll read before my friend departed. He left a post on his Facebook page that has been left up since 2016 as kind of a memorial. It's a quote from V for Vendetta. Talking about this brings us all back for me. And if anyone out there is watching this is struggling, I want to read this to you. I want you to understand that even though I may not know you, love with you, cry with you, or kiss you, I love you. With all my heart, I love you. I don't know who's watching, but I more than likely will never meet you. But please, please, please reach out to those resources. Do what you can. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. Just keep moving.
I think that's really important, and that's a very powerful statement that you made. I did go ahead and I also put in the comments the link to Recovering from Religion for you, the link to secular therapy, and I'm also adding the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
That's it.
Because at the end of the day, each of you has lived a life that maybe is different from mine, but you are a human being and you deserve to feel like you're living a meaningful life. And a meaningful life can look different for different people, but you are worthy of a meaningful life and you deserve to be happy and feel fulfilled and have meaningful connections in life. Sometimes it's not going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to have to go through the fire. Sometimes you're going to have to sort through all the things that you're experiencing and feeling, and it's going to suck. But there will also be times of great joy, and you deserve to have that. And with that being said, thank you, Joshua, for coming. Thank you for sharing so openly. Like, I'm honored to be able to hold this space for you and people like you. It means a lot to me. I'm grateful that we have our people who are listening and engaging in the comments. Thank you. As always, you can like, comment, and share. This live stream was brought to you by the Misfit Amish and our Patreon subscribers. Thank you all so much. I just couldn't do this without all of the support that we have from everybody. And again, thank you, Joshua. I hope each and every one